What stops people and coaches from actually moving forward in their business, and what are the roadblocks and rabbit holes they can go into in the beginning stages of their path, and what are the things that they need to focus on?
I spent so much money on things that didn't actually make the difference or move the needle in any way. And part of it because I didn't know what the roadmap was.
You need to take on the identity of a business owner, which most coaches don't.
Coaches Nation, welcome to the podcast, the Coaches Journey podcast. We're here today. I'm Daniel Fernandez. I'm here with Faisal Ensan to co-host this podcast. On our topic today is why most coaches make no money. And I will just full disclosure this: when I first started coaching, the first couple of years, I made little to no money. So it's definitely a normal journey, but it doesn't have to be. It's a typical journey, but it doesn't have to be the journey that you go through as a coach, because there's so many things I didn't know back then that there's a journey acceleration that happens when you learn all these things. But as an earlier coach, it's really hard to know things you don't know.
Yeah,
So that's
for
what we're here
sure.
to talk about, that thing that most coaches don't make money and why. We're going to talk about that today. I'm actually really excited that Faisal is here to talk about this too. So
Yeah, me too. And that was a struggle for me too in the first couple of years. Not because you can't make money in the first couple of years, but much of it was that I kept going down these rabbit holes. One, I had no frame of reference around what works to build a business, but two, it was one course after another, one program after another, and there was no clear direction as to what actually works to build clientele. What are the skill sets? What is the process? And what is the thing that I need to focus and put our time in to do this? And that's what we do in our community and school community that we've recently moved to with coaches. And I literally got on a call yesterday and the day before with a couple of coaches. One of them went on a wild goose chase for the 6 months that he was doing this, because he was working with a business coach and told him, you need to do this. Now, the funny thing is that what the advice that the business coach gave him was actually fairly sound around niche and everything. But the problem was that he did not understand the coaching world very well. He didn't understand it. And even though he's like, okay, well, he's the expert, I'll listen to him for the 6 months. I'll do this thing where I'll follow this whole niche thing. And then he comes back and I talk to him and I told him, like, what if I told you don't need to do that right now? Especially because he didn't want to do it and still get clients. And I could literally see his shoulders drop and take a deep breath of he's like, thank you. I've been wanting to not do that. But I feel like he was an expert, so I just listened to him. And that's a very common thing that I hear. Another coach, I went through a couple of calls with him and he figured out the process. Now he's actually talking to people to take him through his process to make offers. I didn't do that for the first 8 months of my coaching, and he just got started. He'll be way ahead from there. So we want to talk about like what stops people and coaches from actually moving forward in their business, and what are the roadblocks and rabbit holes they can go into in the beginning stages of their path, and what are the things that they need to focus on. And that's what we do in our community, and we'll talk about this further as we move forward.
yeah, and for those of you who don't know, our school community, SKOOL, is Coaching Mastery Community, and we bring our people together in that SKOOL school community, where all of our members are actively building their coaching businesses. And that's something that didn't exist back when we started coaching a decade ago. And we kind of have been building the thing that we didn't ever have, right? So that's how much we believe in this. We've been building this for like years and years. I think we're at like 5 years now, Faisal.
6 years.
6 years. And it's a lot of work to build this, but it's such a passion for us because we were lost for so long in the coaching world, becoming coaches. And it was really, really hard. Because you're not only becoming a coach, you're becoming an entrepreneur, becoming a business person in most cases. Not in all cases, for sure. You can actually coach for other organizations. You can do contract work. You don't have to build your own business, but a lot of coaches building their own businesses, and I was in this camp, don't have the support and don't have a roadmap. I literally, for me, it's very similar to you, Fazal. There's so many rabbit holes. You don't know what's a rabbit hole and what's not. You don't know how to think about business. You don't know how to set it up, how to like think about finances of the business, how to think about expenses, how to think about what courses you should or shouldn't be taking. Like, there's so many things you got to go through as a coach to figure out what to do and what not to do. And it's all unique to you because you're building your coaching business and you come with a specific set of skills that you have and a specific set of skills that you don't have. And so it's very unique to you. And so a lot of the time we hear this really great marketing pitch for this program that obviously you have to take, and you go take it and it doesn't actually work because you're not at the place where that would actually make the difference for you. And in fact, sometimes it takes you in the wrong direction, as Faisal was alluding to, for you personally. So, I mean, I did that so many times. I spent so much money on things that didn't actually make the difference or move the needle in any way. And part of it because I didn't know what the roadmap was. I was going from thing to thing, and it's like if you go to become a coach and you just listen to everybody else for what you want to achieve, like you need to get more clarity yourself and figure out what your personal roadmap could look like before you just listen to all the things that you could be doing and try to do everything. So if
Yeah.
you're like me and you can get distracted really easily, it's really bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, generally speaking, anybody who's more entrepreneurial minded, who is creative, they will be distracted because they have a lot of ideas. They want to do a lot of things. It's actually much harder to focus and move one thing forward than to pick like 10 different things. But just speak, maybe this is a starting of our point. I mean, the first point in here is if you the coaches don't make money because they don't even actually get the awareness. A very simple thing, the awareness that they're building a business. And Daniel alluded to that. And yes, other people can hire you, but I'll tell you this. Most places that will hire you as a coach, they need experience from you. They will say two things. And ask me how I know, because I've applied. They'll say, you've either done 100 sessions and I'll get you clients, but you would have to go through 100 or so sessions. Like, where does that number come from? Well, like, it's not an accurate number, but once you do 100 sessions, it gives you a different understanding of what coaching is. Or they ask you for like 2-3 years experience, which you don't have. And on top of that, they will take you through a very long interview process, and they will know very clearly that you don't have experience based on that interview process. Because they will listen to your coaching sessions and they will see. And if you don't have coaching sessions, why would they hire you to begin with? So, and because the coaching world is in such a foundational area, we don't have a lot of jobs. And the ones that are there, they are very careful who they hire because their name is on the line. We hire coaches as well. And we've had many members send me recordings. I haven't gone to it to it all, but when I listen to it, I know clearly how much experience this person has. And at what level can we put them? And to be honest, I can't risk a lot of times with the clients that we deal with to put coaches that are not going to be good. And so what you're left with is you need to build your business. That means that you need to build a lot of skill sets. It's not just you need to become a great coach. You actually need to become a really good business owner, which means that you need to take on the identity of a business owner, which most coaches don't.
Yeah, well, with one caveat, I would say that is generally true because in order to become a good coach, you need experience. In order to get experience, you need to be able to take people through that process, which means you need to enroll them in that process. If you're independently wealthy and can take your time doing that, maybe you don't need to be a great business person. But if you want to make this a source of income that actually matters in your life, and and you don't have that independent wealth, then if this is your career path for income as well, then you will need to figure out how to make that work from a financial point of view. And if you do, which most coaches do need to figure that out, and it's not even just a financial, it's a sustainability question. Because if you haven't figured out the systems for the business of coaching, even if it wouldn't be your financial income that you need, you still need to figure out how to systematize it if you want to be in it for the long term. If this is a career path, whether it's a financial need or not, if it's not sustainable, it's not really going to become that career path, right?
Yeah.
So I do like that. So, but generally, I agree with you, Faisal. Like, you're creating a business, and so when you're creating that business, you got to start thinking like a business owner. So here's a question for if you're listening and you're like, oh, that should be fine. It should be easy. Like, have you thought about taxes? Have you thought about what are your expenses going to be? Have you thought about what kind of help you're going to need? Have you thought about the support you're going to need? Have you thought about your team? And there's so many things that will come up in a business that will throw you for a loop, right? We can just go on and on about the things that we never thought of. Maybe we should talk about some of the things that we never thought of, right? Like here's something I never thought of. I never thought of the fact that I needed to figure out how to do this discovery session, the sales session, the first session that you do with people to show them what coaching is, as a thing that I had to learn a process for, that I had to get better at. I didn't even see that as a skill set. I just said to myself, like, oh, I'll just convince them. I'll just, like, you know, do good influence skills and like do a great job, and then they'll just hire me. And it doesn't actually work that way in practice. It's not so simple. If you want to get the systematized and make it sustainable, you have to figure out a process for yourself, something that works, something that communicates that you know what you're doing. Because I didn't know what I was doing, and it showed. Right.
Yeah, and clients know that. They might not know what specific you're doing not right or not effective, but they know at the end of it whether it's of value to them or not, whether or not they will sign up for it or not. And just speaking of, like, I want to kind of hone in on the business piece, because if you can just if you can just hear us say this, just that one point that, hey, you need to take on the identity of a business owner, assuming, of course, that you need a business, that you want a business. Even if you have a lot of money, maybe you want to build this as a type of business that you love and be fulfilled by. And there are a lot of people that I know, even with that point that that Daniel said, that, hey, maybe you have a lot of money, but then you're not doing this as a business model. You're doing this as a volunteer effort. That's a completely different world. And you can do that. You're a mentor or a coach for people on a volunteer side. But there are business owners I know who have a lot of money, but they want to build a new path that feels more fulfilling. They actually want to make money in this process. And there's nothing wrong with that. So keep that in mind as well. But for most coaches that I've met, they want this as a source of income. So, but the thing to keep in mind is that I love this from Alex Hermosi, is that there is no one skill set called business. Like there's no such thing as I have a business skills. Like there are multiple different levels of it. There's so many things that you need to learn, and this is what most coaches underestimate. For one thing, you're jumping in, you're actually developing your skill set as a coach, which is complex enough to begin with. You have to develop, and there's no one skill set that's called coaching. There are multiple skill sets within that identity that you need to learn. And on top of that, you're learning the business skill sets all at once. So you can see how cumbersome that would be. But most coaches underestimate that. And they're like, oh, I'll figure it out in 6 months. Not without support, and no, you will not figure that out, because it'll be very complex, unless you already have, you come from a business background, you've done sales, you've done marketing, which will change things a little bit. You still need to develop your skill sets as a coach. So taking on both of those hats, if you just get away from here and just take on both of those identities, that, you know what, I'm a coach and I'm a business owner. How can I marry those, and how can I move this forward? That would have, if I just took that on, that would have changed my path in the first couple of years. Like I know that I would have made much more progress in the first 6 months than I did in the first 2-3 years.
Yeah, I love that, the point that business owner is so vague. There's so many things that go into business owner. What kind of businesses? What, like there's so many different kinds of businesses and different skill sets. It's like saying I'm an engineer. That tells me nothing, actually, if you know anything about engineering. Like there's a billion types of engineers, right? So like that is not just enough. You need to think about your business model for yourself and what skills that requires. And in the coaching world, what coaching skills that requires. Because I used to think, oh, it's just talking. You just talk to people and money flows in. Yeah, that's how it works, right? Sounds so simple, but actually,
They're blessed to be around me. They're blessed to be around me.
Every beginning coach would make a ton of money. And that's not actually the truth, right? People jump into coaching, and most people aren't making any money.
Yeah. And even when you look at the statistics, I think the average is around 20K or 25K per year for coaches who haven't given up and who's been doing this for a while. Most coaches, majority of them will drop out. And that's a similar statistics on the startup side too. Within 2 years, they will drop out. The ones who survive 4 or 5 years, they will struggle. They will struggle. And mostly because of what we're talking about, mostly because they have resistance around the business identity side. And because they have resistance around that, they don't go towards actually learning the skill sets needed to move forward. And I want to talk about, so the next step with that, let's say you take this on. Let's say you say that, hey, you know what? Okay, I took it on. I'm a business owner and I'm a coach, and I'm going to move both of these forward. So what do you need now? And this is where coaches don't make money. What they get stuck with, the next step is they get stuck with doing a lot of busy work that doesn't do anything. Busy work looks like this. I'm working on my website. I'm planning
Classic.
out my content for the next year. I wanna. I think I need to do more research around different social media. Oh, I just jumped into this new course, this marketing course. I think this is gonna change my world completely.
I'm working on my business card. Another one.
I'm working on my business card.
Yeah, my business card on my website. Like I spent like I was gonna say weeks, but the truth is probably months figuring it out. And like as a techie person, I was just jumping in and trying to like do my own website and stuff, and that didn't have the tools I have now. But still, it can be like overwhelming to just do these little things. Partly because doing a business card, well, that I know how to do. So it's super comfortable for me to design a business card and like, oh, then I have to name my company and then I have to start a company. You know,
I can't talk to people, and this was my thought process. Now I can't talk to people until I receive those business cards, which is a couple of weeks. And then when I receive, it's like, you know what? Let me say, how do I present myself? Let me research that a little bit. But before I talk to anybody, 3 months has gone by.
I know. Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're not making progress, right? Like those things, like, yeah, they can be useful in different ways at different times, but ultimately, like I found there's just like one thing that coaches resist and resist and resist, which is getting in the conversations they need to be having out in the real world. You know, if you're not having conversations, like you're not getting the experience, and not getting that experience will not give you a context in which to build a business. Like you don't know what you're building if you're not actually trying to build it. If you're doing all the things that go around it, like like the preparation can be all consuming, you know, for a long period of time.
And just keep in mind, and this, we're not saying this as a way to judge you, because we've gone through this process ourselves.
Totally.
I understand fully why you would think that, why you would feel that, because it was painful for me to even think about doing something else. But here's how it happens. Most of the things that actually generate revenue, that actually help you build skill sets in you as a coach, and your skill sets and your ability to start understanding how the sales process, marketing process, how acquisition, customer journey, all that stuff works, is actually very uncomfortable if you have never done this. And it's even more uncomfortable as a coach because you're not actually selling some widget or some product from outside. You're actually selling a huge part of who you are. Your identity is wrapped up into it. So you can imagine how uncomfortable it can be subconsciously without even realizing it. So what we do end up doing is a bunch of stuff that doesn't work, and we've laid out a few of those things. But to Daniel's point, the main thing that needs to happen, and you talked about the conversation, but what that is it's a sales process.
Yeah, exactly.
You need to get better at is sales. And this is where kind of you run into this contradiction. When you go out in the world, pretty much every coach is teaching marketing. It's like, you need to understand marketing, and they're right. You do need to understand marketing, but not as much as sales. I can guarantee you your first 6-figure is going to come because you've gone better in the sales process. You understand what journey to take clients through. You understand how it works to make offers. You have a clear offer. You understand how to do those conversations as a coach and be comfortable with that process. You're okay with getting a lot of no's. Just in the past week, I've gotten like 7 no's. And it was actually, I went to my wife, it just hit me. Like, I think I'm 95% there, where no just goes over my head. It doesn't mean anything to me anymore.
Yeah, but when you say no, you actually mean not yet most of the time.
Not yet, right. So no for now. But what in the past, what that was, it would take me a month to recover out of that no. But now
Oh
it's
yeah,
like,
it would take me longer. There was times where I would have like, one of the things that we do as coaches is like, we kind of dip our toe in. And like early on, especially, it's like, it's really easy just to dip your toe in, because like if you fail, if you're just dipping your toe in, it's not really that big a disappointment. But the challenge is, if you just dip your toe in and you're just like going after one client potential lead, then if that client is not going to buy your coaching or sign up with you, all of a sudden now you get like all your eggs are in one basket, right? And so like, if I used to do that, like it was like so important for this client to sign up for me, even though like maybe it wasn't the right fit, and so when the client said no because I didn't have sales skills, or because it wasn't the right fit, or because I didn't have the confidence, which we should get into confidence next, then it's like, oh well, this person said no, and then I felt rejected and I felt like a failure because I was so good at the other things I used to do in my old career, which now that I think about it, took me a long time to learn. I had to invest, I had to get professional development. I had to learn how to do the work that I used to do. And so it's true in coaching. It's like, who starts a career at the top? You start at entry level because you have a professional development curve to go through, right?
Yeah.
And so the professional development curve in coaching is a little different because it's so personal. And so these rejections, it sounds stupid, but like it's not. It's a very personal thing when somebody says no, and you aren't used to it yet. You haven't had the rejection therapy that you need from getting a lot of no's to really be able to be resilient in the face of that. And you're getting better at it when it stops you for less time, right? So like at the beginning, it was like months. Like I would not consciously, I would just like not have any more conversations because I didn't want to go through that again. But it wasn't because I was aware of that. It was just these feelings that I was having that I hadn't yet figured out how to go through and like accept and recognize, partly because I didn't have a coach at the time, partly because I didn't have the support of a community, partly because I didn't have a process, partly because I didn't have the habits of building and having those conversations and the business identity, business owner identity. I didn't have any of that. And so like I would go like months working on other things, right? And not really putting my full heart into conversations that could lead me to rejections.
Yeah. And like I said, once you do this enough, it doesn't even feel like a rejection. It just feels like, okay, how can I support this person further without like literally yesterday I talked to two people that were not ready to sign up for my programs. Today I talked to another person, and these people were actually very qualified. They were excited and everything lined up. They were like, I could say that it was a really good sales process that I took him through, and I was 90% sure they were going to move through it. But because of their circumstances, because of their situation, some things didn't hit and they were not ready yet. And I'm okay with that. And all I do is just they get nurtured. They go through my system, and 2 months later, they might sign up. 3 months later, they might sign up. A month later, they might sign up. But it doesn't matter. I move on to the next person. Right now, I have too many leads to follow up on in my coaching process. But often in our community, for example, we have a WhatsApp group where coaches ask questions even in between sessions. And one of the most common things that they will ask with this kind of tone is like, "Hey, I just met this person, and I think this is going to be really cool." Or I talked to the head of this organization, and I want to make sure that everything goes well. And it's fine. I love that question, but the thing is, they're holding on to that like it's the end of the like if that doesn't happen, something's going to break down, and that's actually internally what ends up happening. It doesn't go through, and something breaks down, and then I'll get on a call with them at some point, and they're like all defeated and everything. I'm like, you do know that that's very normal, right? And it doesn't hit them at that point. So you need to go through a lot of that to kind of get used to it. And so this is one of those things where yes, your mindset will help you, but you need to set up the environment so you go through this, so you get the therapy while doing it, not before it.
Yeah. You like, as Rich Lipton likes to say, yes lives in the land of no. So if you're not willing to go for more no's, you're gonna get less yeses. So
Yeah.
but this comes back to another question that we touched on a moment ago, which I want to talk about: confidence. Because like confidence is actually, it's a very vague, generalized word, but that was one of the challenges as an early coach, is that I didn't have the confidence that comes from experience, that comes from feeling good about the value I can deliver, which led me to deliver less value, which led me to do less talking to people because I didn't have that confidence, right?
So are you saying that the confidence stops coaches from making more money? A lack of confidence?
Yeah, lack of confidence. Like if you're not confident as a coach, you're going to be more tentative with creating those connections and those conversations and those coaching sessions that lead to actually coaching packages. You're going to be less confident with your prices and with your making your offer. You're gonna like, I remember the one time I wasn't charging very much for like a 3-month package. And it was like,
What was the first? Do you remember your first package or the
my
first?
first package. Oh my gosh! Well, I definitely did a little bit of free stuff at the beginning when I was still in my corporate job. But after I left, I really had a hard time charging high money and they communicate. Like I would charge what I wanted to charge, and nobody would ever sign up.
But
So
what was it? Do you remember the number? I'm
I want
curious.
to say I think I started something like I thought I could charge $6,000 for a 3-month package, and nobody like was buying that. And the reason nobody was buying it because I let my own stuff get in the way. Like I was not confident enough to offer that price and believe it. because when you offer something at a price and you don't believe it, everybody can tell if they're in the conversation with you. It's like, so I think I went down to like, you know, 2,800 or something eventually. I can't even remember. It was less than that, maybe even. And I think I even sold a few like 2 or 3 session packages or one-off sessions for like very little money. But there's the first time I sold what I thought was a higher ticket. I think it was like, I'm gonna get these numbers wrong, but it's something like $3,000 for the 12 sessions of three months. But the guy said like, oh, I want to do a payment plan. I'm like, okay, sure, payment plan, great. And so like, okay, so but I want to start. So apparently I did a really good job at the first session with him. But then it's like the whole sales process, like I didn't know how to like think about contracts, and like I didn't have it, like it was so hokey. I
You
can't even
have
believe
no
the guy
idea
even
what
paid
the hell
anything.
is going on.
He did sign up, but like I can't even believe he paid for anything. But he said, what I really want is I want a payment plan of 2 payments, one payment now, one payment halfway through. And then I sent the contract. He said you need to change the contract so that I pay for the first 6 sessions and then I pay for the second 6 sessions. I'm like, whatever, I'll put whatever in the contract. So I sent it, and what do you know? After 6 sessions, he didn't want to continue, and so he didn't make the second payment. He didn't get the 6 sessions, but he wasn't obligated to pay the whole thing with the change he asked for the contract. So he came in thinking this wasn't going to work, right? Thinking it was only going to be, and I wasn't that good of a coach back then. I was mediocre, maybe. I was okay, but like, it was such a rude awakening to me. It's like, I kind of knew in the back of my head this was going to happen, but I tried to believe that it wasn't going to happen, because why would he have asked for that in the contract?
Yeah.
It was so funny.
And pricing is such a hard thing. And just by the way, just off the top, pricing is very emotional in nature. That's why it's so much connected to your confidence level. Now, I was thinking about my own, what I used to share. So in the beginning, first year was volunteer for me. I was doing it free. I was working with people free left and right, and I enjoyed the process. And I didn't even understand offers at that time. But then I remember the first one, it was with a close. It was one of the people around me in my circle, and I charged $50 a session. I couldn't even support her properly in that process, and I didn't qualify her properly. It was so clunky. And then the first actual package that I sold was $1,200. Now, from there, like to me, like a $2,000 package or a 5,000 or 10, I didn't even consider $10,000 as a package. Forget about doing it. It wasn't even in the thinking process. But going from that to now, just past couple of weeks, as offering a $76,000 package, but if I want to convert that to Canadian, that's more like $100,000 package.
Oh, it was USD. You didn't tell me it was
That was
USD.
USD.
I
No,
assumed in the back of my head it was USD, but it might not have been.
so I converted in my head. It sounds better, 100,000. But so imagine offering $100,000. That's like a 100x growth in terms of revenue, and that's just within 10 years. What field can you expect that from? Like what that can, and so to me that blows my mind. But I wasn't even thinking about it, but not because like part of it is, yes, confidence. There are a lot of things that needed to be built on the way to this. So I'm not saying you're going to do that next week or next month or next year. But what I am saying is the potential is really high, but it starts with that confidence that Daniel is talking about. And when you're thinking about pricing, just remember that in the beginning, it's very emotional in nature. Pick a price that feels a little bit uncomfortable, but you're mostly confident to make that offer. It doesn't actually matter in the beginning. You need to go through the process to offer something and for somebody for you to build that confidence. But the area that helped me more than anything else in terms of confidence was actually my coaches and community, more than anything else. When I got to a point where I started hiring coaches, and when I got to a point where I was around a community of coaches, and this is the key thing to remember, it's not any coach, because you might have gone out of a certification with a coach and you're kind of doing back and forth, coaching each other, supporting. I had that for a long time, for the first 2 years. Then it helped me in understanding how some of the pieces work. It's definitely helpful. But to actually move my business forward, I needed coaches who were actually working on their business. Some ahead of me, some where I was, some behind me, so I could get a good view of what's actually happening. I could understand what's working. Here's how it would happen in practice. What ended up happening when I got around other coaches, when we started asking questions like, how are you getting clients? What are you charging? How did your last session go? How many proposals did you make? When you start asking these questions, you started getting responses from other coaches who are trying different ways. and they're successful at certain things, and even when they're struggling, you actually start to get a really good picture of what's happening. And you start to make, and that's one of the best feedbacks that we get in the community in our community is that when they see other coaches doing things, they get inspired. Two, when they see their process, okay, if they can do it, why can't I do it? And now they have a good picture and a model of what to do. That takes a little bit of time to build out. Now, most coaches don't go through a community like that. What they do is they get a course and they kind of listen to one person who's talking about this. It kind of makes sense, sort of makes sense, and they try to do it. It feels clunky. They'll launch something on a marketing side or a sales side. And in about 3 months, they feel defeated. Nothing worked. It worked. You just don't know what worked and how to move forward and how to refine it because you don't have any kind of feedback process.
Yeah, I think there's so many 3 month periods where I tried something, and I have like spreadsheets and things of people I was contacting, and at about the 3 month mark, you get really discouraged. Sometimes it's even earlier than that, and like I honestly like look back at that and think like, oh my gosh, if if I had another month on it, would have made a huge difference, because like the growth of your outreach and the relationships you're building, they don't return immediately. Like we want this faster. We want it to be faster. But a coaching business is normally pretty much, I would say, like a vast majority of the time, is a relationship building business. And so as you build those relationships take time. It's like growing a flower or a plant or a tree. You don't grow them immediately. Like you have to build relationships, and you can't build relationships when you need them. So
Yeah.
you need to be always building relationships. That's a quote from Mary Barra, the CEO of General Motors, when I used to work there. And she said that one day. I was like, huh. And it hit me, and I didn't know what to do with that because I wasn't very good at building relationships.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I could still do better at building relationships, right?
We all can. It's probably it's probably one of the most complex skills that you can build. It
Yeah.
is to building relationships, probably.
And that's one of the things I love about Coaching Mastery Community, CMC. Our community allows you to build relationships with coaches who are building relationships with clients, so that you are inspired to build relationships with clients too, because everybody is actively building their coaching business, which means they're building relationships with clients, and everybody knows it doesn't happen instantaneously, right? And seeing that encouragement, that feedback, that like, oh, well, people are starting to get clients because they've been building this relationship for 2-3 months. Okay, well, that's good data for you to hear in real time from other coaches. Or hey, I did this thing, it totally backfired on me. Okay, well, that's good data to hear from real time in coaches of what's working, what's not working in the field. But like you need to have some sort of feedback mechanism for you personally, because it's really discouraging to be out there on your own without a solid community support, without a solid like group of people that you can trust and work with. Just like at work, right? You have like one of the things I lost in corporate when I left for coaching. I didn't think about this among other things, but I didn't have an ecosystem of support, an ecosystem of colleagues, an ecosystem of professional growth, an ecosystem of opportunities, an ecosystem of a team to lead. Like all these ecosystems that support me were gone, and I had to build them all myself, which is insane for someone who never
We
ran a business
underestimate
before.
the effect of that. Like we're a social species. We need that
Oh yeah,
ecosystem.
it was brutal. It was brutal, and I literally had just moved cities because I was no longer able to stay in the city I was in, so I need to move in with my girlfriend at the time in Chicago, and who's now my wife, by the way. And so like everything changed for me on a dime. So I made that decision. I left corporate, left everything I knew, left my hometown, left all my friends, left my social activities, my social circles, any familiarity, and I'm in this relationship with somebody that I'm living with somebody for the first time in my life. There's like so many factors. So one of the things I want people to think about as coaches, what are the psychological factors affecting you in this transition? It's not just related to coaching. It's probably a lot of things. Because if you're going through a transition in your life with coaching, there's probably other things going on in your growth. But like even just the coaching part alone, the business and career path change is a huge psychological, emotional journey.
Yeah.
That will affect you. It's impossible not to. So like just like consider that can be a reason why there's a lot of resistance and a lot of discomfort, because we can't do the uncomfortable things when we're in that state of like worry or resistance or defensiveness or stress. It's hard to do those things that are a lot of resistance, and pretty much everything in a new career is going to be resistance.
Yeah, and just giving yourself a little bit of grace in that process, that this is hard, this is tough. Most coaches are, and I don't think it's their fault. I think the messaging that they hear, and I heard that messaging too, is like, hey, you can make 6-figure in the first year. You can make Is that possible? Yes, but there are certain conditions that need to be met. One, you need to be a really good coach. Two, you need to have a really good network. Three, you need to be really good at sales and the whole understand the business world very well for you to get to that process. That took me a while to do. And so coaches hear that and they look at that opportunity like, yes, I'm making 6-figure in 1 year. It's not as simple as that. If it was easy, a lot of people would do it. It's incredibly challenging, but it's worth it. It's worth the ROI, even if it takes you 3 years to do that. It's worth the ROI, even if it takes you 4, because once you understand the system, you will never say that, oh, you know what, I need to go towards a different career or a different business. You understand the business model. You understand how to create clients. You understand how to build yourself up, but it's worth it. But what we're saying is that, hey, get the feedback that you need. Don't do this alone. And one of the things we alluded to before is part of the confidence is confidence has many dimensions to it. Part of it is when you're making an offer and you're taking people through the process, but a big part of it is your own skill sets as a coach. And I would say, starting with me, most coaches are under the illusion that they're a great coach as soon as they get started. And like Danielle pointed out, you're starting out a career.
That's what I thought.
Why would you think that you would be a great coach? Why that kind of, and because again, where this is drummed up on the outside, it's like, oh, just because you get a certification or you understand that you've gone through certain things in life, you will be a great coach. Well, that doesn't mean that you're not wise or you don't have some skills and principles that could help somebody. But what it does mean is that the world of coaching is very specific. You are working with people to help people create outcomes and results. And that is a hard thing to do, help people do. And that requires you to be very specific. That requires you to challenge people. That requires you to understand their world. That requires you to understand the sales process. That requires you to understand there's so many rabbit holes you can go through in a session, in a coaching session with a client, like 100 different directions you can go to and make split-second decisions. Which questions should I ask? That requires a lot of experience and practice and beating up your process quite a bit. Even if you've been given a great process, you still need to do that. Again, that comes down to, do you have support? Do you have feedback? Do you actually know? And I ask coaches this. I ask two kinds of questions a lot from newer coaches. One, do you know that you can get people results in this amount of time without a shadow of doubt internally for yourself? And they don't know. They have no, they will say it. They're like, I've never taken people through it, so I don't actually know. All they know is that they can talk to people, which is fine. That's a starting point. And the other one I ask her on the marketing and sales side is like, what? It's a ridiculous question. Why aren't you standing on top of the rooftops and shouting that I'm a coach and I can help you with this? It's a ridiculous question, but why aren't you talking to more people? Again, comes down to confidence. So they're worried about, oh, I need to understand the specific how to do copywriting and social media. No. That's not the problem. That's just busy work that's stopping you. Even if you didn't know anything about social media, you know what you would do? You would jump on and start turning on your video and start messaging people in the background because you're
people are worried about being
involved.
judged too. It's like that. Like, I think that's really you're just reminding me of like, it was hard for me to tell people because I thought I was going to get judged. It was hard for me to tell people because I didn't think I could do it for them. I couldn't get the result. It was hard for me to tell people because that would require me committing to a process of telling people on a regular basis. And I didn't have the discipline for that. There's so many reasons why, like, I didn't core believe, right? Like in the magic of what I thought I could do, what I wanted to be able to do. And I didn't put myself out there. I think the biggest fear that most coaches get is, I could be projecting here, which is I'm going to be judged.
Yeah.
So like that, and
that's a human thing. We're all concerned about that. It's like you might, and this again, this goes into coaches have this weird thing. Just because they understand this theoretically doesn't mean that it applies. They're like, you know what? I don't care about what people think. I've overcome that. Maybe you've overcome that in a part of your life, but not in this. And you know how you know that? Pay attention to your day-to-day actions. You will know the resistance that you have to be known as a coach is very dominant. Is very dominant, and as long as that's there, it's not going to go away. And what coaches do, they will be like, you know what, I need to figure this out internally. So they'll do a lot of journaling. They might even go get a coach. And all that is helpful. All that is very helpful. But I like Alex Hormozi's approach. He's like, I'll paraphrase him. He's like, build so much evidence in terms of the behavior that you have or the actions that you take, that it becomes unreasonable for you to be successful in there. And it becomes unreasonable for other people to judge you, which means that you actually need to put yourself out there and do the work, which is the uncomfortable work. Have conversations, figure out your blind spots, areas that you don't know, build skill sets, and keep doing this over and over until you get used to the process. Not wait until you kind of overcome that internally and do this. Because there won't be a point where you say, you know what, I'm confident now, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
It
You meant build evidence so that it's unreasonable for you to be unsuccessful, right?
What did I say? Unreasonable
I
for
think you
you to
said
be...
unreasonable to be successful, but it's like there's no other, like it's
Yes,
unreasonable.
yes.
Yeah.
I might have said the opposite.
Like, and that evidence comes from you being in the game. And that's the thing that happened to me a lot. And it happens to a lot of coaches, which is you get yourself out of the game for periods of time. And the game is staying in those conversations, staying and telling people telling people about coaching, staying in the game of like living at that level where you really own that identity and you really recognize that you can change people's lives. And if you can change people's lives, you're actually hurting them by not putting yourself out there. So,
yeah.
like,
So it's so easy to say that, but for you to integrate that and build that,
it. Yeah.
when you believe it, you will actually get out of your way to find people to support them. Marketing will not be a challenge. Sales, you will still need to learn. I'm still learning sales. I'm still learning marketing. I'm still figuring out so many pieces, but I don't care. I'm not a great speaker, but I just spent the whole weekend trying everything in the book just to get people to understand what the coaching process is and how I can support them. You can see, like, I was actually I was going back and on stage. I was remembering the theory around speaking while I was doing it, and I could tell I was doing a bunch of stuff wrong. So there was this one point. It was hilarious. I'm going through this process. I'm on stage. Good thing is I was getting them to journal, but this is what I was doing. Instead of walking this way, looking that way, and kind of being in the front, I was walking in circles. And then, and then I'd be like, what the hell am I doing right now? I don't know how to do this, but it was working.
But you're doing it anyway. That's the point. Like, even if you don't know how to do it and you're having a hard time with the experience of knowing that you don't know how to do it, you're still pushing forward, right? Like,
yeah, because I have an internal belief now, an internal core thing is that I need to tell more people about this, because not because I believe so, I think I'm a great coach, because my clients are like, oh my God, this changed my life. Oh my God, this changed my business. This changed my relationships. When I hear that, I'm like, okay, I need to help more people. That's important. I didn't need to build that internally. I needed to hear that from the people that I was helping. So
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that. We want to transition. There's a lot to talk about in here, but just to summarize around those 3 points. The first one, put on the hat. Business, you're a coach and you're a business owner. That means that you need to build skill sets around both of these areas. If you don't know what that is, don't just go get a course. Don't just go jump into some marketer's labyrinth. Join a community where you're getting live feedback around it. Same thing with the next step. The second point, was it confidence, or there was one other point?
I think it was actually relationships. It summarizes a lot of what we talked about. Like, so first, put on the identity. Yeah. Second, build those relationships. And a part of that is what we talk about, outreach, putting yourself out there. So put on the identity, which means you're going to put yourself out there. Putting yourself out there, you got to focus on building relationships over and over again, nurturing. I would call it nurturing relationships. And then like stay in the game. That's what I would summarize our conversation today. Identity, outreach, relationship nurturing, and staying in the game.
And confidence came up as a big piece of it at the end. But for you to build confidence, you need to build skill sets as a coach, as a business owner, and you need to be around the right type of people who are going to support you, encourage you, give you feedback. And that requires you to be around a lot of people who are actually doing this, actually moving their business forward, not coaches who are just thinking about it or anything like that. And that's one of the reasons why we've created School, our community. You will see the link below this somewhere. If you're listening to this outside of School, we usually broadcast this live for our members. If you're listening to this on our YouTube podcast or anywhere, just go to the link. It's a very small investment for you to join a community of people who will support you. Much smaller investment than what you would need to in a marketing program or some business program or sales program that wouldn't even give you all the information you need, all the support you need to move forward. The level of support we have is equivalent to probably $10,000 program, but we give that at a very, very low, at 10th of that price. So join us there. Just click the link, learn more about it, and you have 30 days where you get it completely for free. So you don't even need to pay. You will need to enter your credit card information, but you don't need to pay, and you can cancel it before that. When you join in, I can tell you that you're going to actually get inspired as a starting point. You're going to learn what support looks like. We're going to support you, take you through the process. You're going to gain so much, be like, it doesn't make sense for me not to be part of the community. So we're excited to see you on the other side. And please share your thoughts, questions below, and share this with any coach, any friend that needs to hear this.
All right. Thank you so much for listening today, and see you next time on the Coach's Journey podcast.
Take care, y'all. Bye.